Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Leanna Brinded, business editor for the International Business Times. Joining me now is Matthew Sanders. He's the CEO of Poel. So hi, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, thank you for having me.
Well, we're talking about UK employment or unemployment and of course the job sector.
Yeah.
So kicking off with the UK, the jobs market has transformed since the financial crisis. So maybe you can talk me through some of that transformation.
Yeah, it went through a big dip obviously in 2008 and a lot of people lost their jobs very quickly. Interesting in the temporary sector or the contingent sector, or non-permanent, depends how you want to word it. You found that those people were the first people out of the door. It's often the case, but as the economy is growing again now, and we're seeing sort of not just green shoots, but actual real growth across a wide range of sectors, you are seeing a lot more people being taken back on, and a lot of those people are being taken on a non-permanent basis. So be that through agencies, be that on a direct contractor basis or interim, however it might be, there's real growth in those sectors, which is actually replicated across Western Europe in economies which are also doing quite well, so the Dutch economy, the German economy, Scandinavia, where you're seeing many more people as a percentage of the workforce being employed on a non-permanent basis.
Okay. I mean, one of the issues I suppose lots of people say is that while it seems on paper that a lot more people are getting back into jobs, in terms of what temporary contracts give you, it's not a lot of, I suppose, peace of mind and long-term security. Do you think that's actually just, I suppose, stagnating the growth in the jobs at the moment?
I think it's a myth to a degree, to be fair. There's an element of truth in that, without doubt. If I go back to when I joined this industry 20 years ago, the vast majority of contracts in the temporary sector, at any level, were just day by day and so on. If you look at some of the work that we've done now at Poel with the likes of Carlsberg, we've got people on 12-month contracts, 6-month contracts based around performance, with enhanced pay for performance and so on and so forth. And again, in the contractor space, you are seeing people on fixed-term contracts, which helps around the IR35 rules as well. So there is more longevity of contract. The Swedish derogation contracts, which came in after the agency workers regulations a couple of years ago, have forced a lot of people to actually employ temporary workers. So lots of agencies are now employing them rather than taking them on a contract to service basis. So there is more security. It's not as much as a permanent job. I'm not going to try and say it is, but there is getting more and more, and that's quite good. Well, it's giving the workers flexibility and also giving the clients the flexibility to man up and man down a workforce as required. What is really interesting for me is 20 years ago again, most people worked for a temporary agency because they couldn't find permanent work, full stop. And it was a way into permanent work for lots of people. We estimate somewhere between 40 and 50% now of people who choose to do this type of work are doing so out of choice. It gives them the flexibility to work around other commitments, be them personal, hobbies, other work-related projects. So there is a lot more flexibility there for the candidates as well. So it's not just a one-way street from employers.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of advantages for, as you've pointed out, for having temporary contract workers, and particularly for SMEs, that's fantastic because, like you said, you're able to man up or man down when it needs to be. But when it comes to some of the huge companies, and you've got some huge clients on your books,
yeah.
For the long term, is it somewhat a false economy because you naturally would pay more for a contract worker rather than a permanent staff and basic salary? So would it, over the long term, would it just be better for them maybe to adopt maybe a half-half with the contract versus permanent?
It's a very interesting question. You need to look at why people have got the contractor workers in the first place. Why have they got them? Sometimes it's difficult to get permanent people. There are certain skill sets, especially in IT, where people don't want permanent jobs. They know they can get a bit more money. They will refuse with clients to be made permanent. The client offers to give them a permanent job, they'll say, no, I'll go and work elsewhere, because as a contractor, their skills are short, in demand, and they can charge a premium. You'll also find that a lot of companies use temporary workers for flexibility, but there's another reason which doesn't get talked about very often. A lot of our larger companies now are owned by venture capital firms. I would neither say it's a good thing nor a bad thing, it's just a matter of fact of life. Non-permanent workforce is not on your fixed costs on your balance sheet. It can enhance the value of your company. So there's a whole myriad of reasons. I think it's quite good the way the situation is at the moment. I think there's a natural ebb and flow to it. We do seem to, if you look at the Dutch model, we just opened in the Netherlands. Over there is a lot more contracting, a lot more middle management, senior management jobs are now done on a contractor basis. And one of the reasons that is the case there, and I think this will happen here as well, and we're seeing it happen now, is as there's more and more legislation about employing people, and in particular getting rid of people, which is getting extremely difficult should you want to downsize for whatever reason, or performance-related dismissals. People are thinking, well, let's not employ these people. Let's leave these on a temporary agency's books on a contractor basis. So what that means is legislation which is designed to protect people is actually doing exactly the opposite. It's meaning companies are reluctant to take on permanent employees, and that's definitely the case. I speak to a lot of our clients, and there's a real reluctance.
Well, like you said, you just opened in the Netherlands, and you do have presence across Europe. So how does the UK jobs market differ from maybe some of the European countries?
Well, compared to Southern Europe, it's extremely buoyant, and we've got a great jobs market in the UK. There's some skill shortages in the UK, but again, they are prevalent across most of Europe. The other companies and developed economies are having the same problems. The real difference for me is that we actually talk a lot about this use of contractors and temporary workers and non-permanent workforce as if it's a problem here. Much more accepted, Holland, Germany, France even. Spain and Italy not so much, they're more traditional models of employment, but huge unemployment at the moment.
Okay, and I mean on that side of things, how have you seen in terms of maybe foreign-based workers wanting to come to the UK? Because naturally there are places like Spain and Italy and Greece where a lot of especially youth unemployment is at soaring levels. So is there an appetite to actually bridge that gap by maybe bringing in temporary workers in the UK?
Yeah, the proportion of people who work through the Poel and agencies to our end clients that are non-UK born, we'll say, it grows year on year. It grows year on year. And it is amazing the wide breadth of where people come from, because every nation under the sun seems to want to come and work in England if you look at who goes through our systems. You know, from Africa, the Far East, the Middle East, Europe. So I think we have a global workforce. People move globally now for work, and not just at the very senior levels, at middle and even junior levels. People are prepared to go, well, I'd like to live in the UK for 5 years or 2 years or Spain or whatever it might be. And you see a very migrant workforce, which didn't really exist when I started working 20, 30 years ago. It was quite rare, much more of that.
Well, especially with the transformation of UK employment market, and of course how it's in the change in more contractors seems to really be helping not only companies grow and do their business, but also pull us out of this recession. So how would you say how large of importance is having non-UK born workers helping our economy?
I think it's extremely important. I really do. And it's not new, it's been going on for hundreds of years. Hundreds and hundreds of years people have come to this country when we've had skill shortages in various areas, be it shipbuilding, farming, whatever it might be. And it's vital because we have got skill shortage. There are lots of jobs which people don't seem to want to do. Not an area we're involved in particularly, but if you look at horticulture in the UK, and there's nobody studying horticulture, and yet we have a massive horticulture industry. So what do? You can't shut down an industry, you have to go elsewhere and bring the skills in, and that's what we'll continue to do. I think what is important is that the education system is looked at and seen what are we educating people for? What are the jobs that we have shortages of, and how can we encourage people to do those? So we seem to have a shortage of IT people. You know, we have our ETIP system, which is a proprietary system we developed in the UK. As we expand and do more and more things with it, we now outsource some of that work to Poland. Not because we want to outsource to Poland, it's got nothing to do with cost, we just can't find developers. We managed to find 30 or so developers of the type we need in the Northwest, and that seems to be it. So it's quite difficult. So they need to focus on these areas, the sort of government and education systems together, and business all talking together, saying, what do we want, not now, because what we want now is not relevant, because people who are starting school, it's what we're going to need in 20 years' time. So there needs to be forward thinking on how do we educate a population to meet the needs of workforce and companies in 20, 30 years' time, and that needs quite a lot of looking at, I think.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
That was Matthew Sanders. He's the CEO of Poel.